Delinquent taxes, unpaid taxes that are overdue. Buffer zone, an area of land that serves as a protective barrier between two separate regions or entities. Title, ownership of asset or interest. Estate for years, a lease or tenancy for a fixed period of time, aka a fixed term tenancy. Loan commitment, written agreement that outlines the terms and conditions under which the lender is willing to provide a loan. Appraisal, a professional evaluation of the value of a property. Constructive eviction, the act of a tenant being forced to move out of a rental property due to actions of the landlord that make the property uninhabitable. Kickback, a practice in which a real estate professional receives an unauthorized payment for referring clients or business to another party. Market data approach, the principle of comparing the subject property with recent sales of similar properties in the same area, also known as the sales comparison approach. Principle of regression states that the value of a property decreases when less valuable properties are built in the area. Principal payment, a payment towards the original amount of a loan. Lease option, a real estate arrangement which provides a renter with the option to purchase the property they are leasing at a later date, also known as a rent-to-own agreement. Estate at will, a type of leasehold estate that grants a tenant the right to occupy a property with the landlord's permission indefinitely. Joint tenancy, form of property ownership by two or more people with the right of survivorship. Principal, a person who is represented by an agent or broker in a real estate deal. Economic life, the estimated period during which an asset is expected to remain economically productive or generate income. Constructive fraud, a legal concept where a person's actions or omissions have the effect of deceiving or harming another party. Tenant's rights for repairs, implied right that allows a tenant to make necessary repairs and often deduct the cost of the repair from the rent. Mortgage, a loan agreement in which a lender provides funds to a borrower, usually requiring interest. Steering, the practice of directing or guiding potential buyers or tenants toward or away from properties based on their race, ethnicity, nationality, religion, gender, disability, or other protected characteristics. Release clause, a provision included in a purchase and sale agreement or a contract that allows a party to be released from certain obligations under specific circumstances. Mezzanine financing, a form of financing that is often used to bridge the gap between senior debt and equity financing. Escrow, a financial arrangement in which a third party holds and manages funds, documents, or assets on behalf of two or more parties involved in a transaction. FHA loans, a mortgage issued by an FHA-approved lender and insured by FHA, Federal Housing Administration. Municipality, a city or town that is considered local government. Executory contract, a contract that has been agreed upon by two or more parties but has not yet been fully executed. The Clean Water Act, 1972, a federal law that regulates water quality standards and pollution control for surface waters. Limited Liability Company, LLC, a business structure that provides the owners with personal liability protection, pass-through taxation, and operational flexibility. Home Equity Line of Credit, HELOC, allows homeowners to borrow money against the equity they have built up in their homes. Lessor, an individual or entity that owns an asset and leases or rents that asset to another party in exchange for periodic payments. Down payment, an upfront payment made by a buyer when purchasing real estate. Contingent property, a property of which the offer has been accepted, but the completion of the transaction is contingent on specific conditions being met. USDA loan, a mortgage program offered by the United States Department of Agriculture to help people purchase homes in rural and certain suburban areas, also known as a USDA Rural Development Loan. Cost approach, method used to determine the value of real estate, the value of the land plus the cost of building on it. Avulsion, the removal or addition of land to a property due to natural forces such as flooding. Variable lease, type of lease agreement where the tenant's rent is determined based on a percentage of their gross sales or a specific revenue figure in addition to a base rent, generally commercial or real estate, also known as a percentage lease. Alienation clause, a contractual provision which gives the lender the right to demand full repayment of the loan when the borrower transfers the property securing the loan, also known as a call provision. Rent stabilization, a regulatory system implemented by some local governments to control and limit rent increases for residential rental properties. Owner financing, a real estate transaction arrangement in which the seller of a property provides financing to the buyer, also known as seller financing. Home inspection, an examination of the condition and overall integrity of a residential property conducted by a qualified home inspector. Foreclosure, a legal process that occurs when a borrower fails to make their mortgage payments and the lender takes possession of property as collateral for the unpaid debt. Air rights, the legal rights to control and use the space above a piece of land or a building. Zoning ordinances, laws that indicate how land and property within a jurisdiction can be used and subdivided, also known as zoning regulations. DBA, doing business as. Ingress, the right to enter a property. Subsidized housing, the process of the government or housing authority providing financial assistance to reduce the cost of housing for eligible individuals or families, also known as affordable housing. Prime rate, the interest rate that commercial banks charge their most creditworthy customers, typically large corporations. Material defect, a significant problem with a property that could potentially influence a buyer's decision to purchase the property. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination in the sale, rental, and financing of housing based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, disability, familial status, also known as Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. Implied contract, a legally binding agreement that is formed without the parties explicitly stating the terms and conditions. Deed restrictions, conditions or limitations placed on the use of real property outlined in a deed, also known as covenants. Duress, the use of force or threats to induce another person to act against their will. Power of attorney, a legal document that allows one person to grant another person or entity the authority to make decisions and manage affairs on their behalf. Per atrevi, French for another's life, a term used to indicate the duration of a specific form of life estate created when a life estate holder transfers his or her interest to another person. Mrs. Murphy exemption, a legal concept that provides an exemption from certain anti-discrimination laws, particularly in the context of the Fair Housing Act. Appreciation, any gain in the value of a property. Economic obsolescence or external obsolescence, a reduction in the value of a property due to external factors. Commission, a fee paid to an agent. Listing agreement, a document in which a property owner contracts with a real estate agent to find a buyer. Tenant, a person who occupied land or property from a landlord. Fee simple defeasible, a type of estate in real property that grants ownership of the property but is subject to specific conditions, limitations, or restrictions. Equal Credit Opportunity Act, or ECOA, prohibits discrimination against borrowers applying for home loans. Property management, the overseeing of real estate and property. Closing cost, fees for finalizing the mortgage. Mortgage assignment, transaction in which the rights and obligations of an existing mortgage are transferred from one party to another. Price fixing, the practice of setting the price of a good or service to make a particular price a standard. Actual fraud, an intentional misrepresentation of fact. Fee simple absolute, the highest form of real estate ownership in which the owner can enjoy the property to its fullest extent. Littoral rights, the legal rights associated with the use of properties located along bodies of water. Adjustable rate mortgage, ARM, a type of home loan where the interest rate is not fixed for the entire loan term but rather adjusts periodically, also known as a variable rate mortgage. Land trust, a legal agreement in which a property owner transfers the title of a property to a trustee. Reverse mortgage, a home loan that allows the borrower to get cash against the value of their property. Caveat emptor, Latin for let the buyers beware. Trustee, a person required to manage a trust in accordance with the trustor's wishes and in the beneficiary's best interest. Wraparound loan, a new loan that wraps around the seller's original loan. Egress, the right to exit a property. Heir, a person who would inherit an interest or property when the owner dies. Tie-in agreement, a contractual arrangement in which a seller conditions the sale of one product/service on the purchase of another product or service. Negative fraud, the act of purposely leaving out information you legally must disclose. Defeasance clause, a required contract provision that ensures that the title of the property is transferred to the buyer once the mortgage is fully paid off. Trust, a three-party relationship in which the trustor or settler transfers the property upon the second party for the benefit of the beneficiary. Beneficiary, a person for whom the trust works for. Water rights, the rights to use rivers, lakes, or oceans that are adjacent to land. Special warranty deed, a deed in which the grantor warrants only against defects occurring during their ownership. Counter offer, a response made by the seller to a buyer's initial offer on a property. Safe Drinking Water Act, SDWA, in 1974, allowed greater control by EPA to control contaminant levels and take legal action against public water authorities. Federal National Mortgage Association, or Fannie Mae, a government-sponsored enterprise that offers mortgage from moderate to low-income borrowers. Commingling, the mixing of two or more distinct and separate assets, funds, or properties. Special agent, real estate agent who is authorized to represent a principal in a specific transaction or a limited set of tasks. Quitclaim deed, a deed that contains no title covenant and thus offers the grantee no warranty as to the status of the property title. Limited partnership, composed of one or more general partners and at least one limited partner. Involuntary alienation, the process of a property being transferred without the owner's consent. Novation, a procedure in which an original contract is terminated and replaced with a new one. Pending property, a property of which the offer has been accepted and both parties are moving forward with the sale. Dominant estate, a parcel of real property that has an easement over another piece of property. Underwriting, a process that lenders use to determine whether the borrower qualifies for a loan. Bilateral contract, an agreement between at least two people or groups. Principle of substitution, states that a buyer will not pay more for a property than the cost of an equally desirable property. Meets and bounds, a system which uses physical features for the local geography along with directions and distances to describe the boundaries of a parcel of land. Voluntary alienation, a transfer of title made with the owner's consent. Amenities, useful features or facilities that provides comfort and increases the value of the property. Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act of 1980, KERCLA, government program designed to fund the cleanup of sites contaminated with hazardous substances or pollutants. Bill of sale, the paperwork given to pass title to a property. Condemnation, procedure used with the powers granted from eminent domain to take privately owned real estate. FHA appraisal, the process done by an FHA appraiser to appraise a property for an FHA loan. Lease termination, the process of a landlord or tenant ending a rental agreement before the end of the lease. Appurtenance, any right, privilege, or improvement associated with a property that is considered to be an inherent part of the property. Loan origination fee, a fee required by the loan originator to process the loan. Principle of progression states that the value of a property increases when more valuable properties are built in the area. Ownership in severalty, one person owns the property. Modified gross lease, a rental agreement where the tenant pays rent plus a share of operating expenses. Tenant turnover, the process of tenants moving in and out of rental properties. Corporation, a legal entity that can be involved in various aspects of the real estate industry. Subletting, an arrangement where a tenant rents out space to another person for a portion of the lease term. Title insurance, insurance that protects home buyers and mortgage lenders from title defects. Dividing territories, the process of partitioning a geographic area into distinct regions or zones. Delinquent mortgage, a mortgage in which the borrower has missed payments. Usury, the practice of lending money at an excessively high rate of interest. Construction loan, a short-term loan designated to finance the construction or renovation of a real estate project. Lessee, a person or entity that enters into a lease agreement to rent or lease a property. Open listing, a non-exclusive agreement between a property owner and multiple real estate agents where each agent has the potential to find a buyer for the property and earn a commission. Package mortgage, a real estate financing arrangement that combines both real property and personal property as collateral for the loan, also known as a package loan. Abutting, properties that share a common boundary. Estate at sufferance, estate in which a tenant occupies a rental property after the expiration of their lease or rental agreement without the landlord's explicit permission. Lis pendens, Latin for pending litigation. Civil Rights Act of 1866 allowed anybody to own property regardless of their color or race. Co-borrower, person who shares equal responsibility for making payments on the loan as the primary borrower, also known as co-applicant or joint applicant. Co-op, a non-profit corporation complete with a board of directors and each resident is a shareholder. Co-ownership, an arrangement where the title to one parcel of real estate is held by two or more individuals. Color of title, the legal concept of a claim to title appearing to be legally valid, but in actuality the claim is defective. Community property laws. Community property laws are based on the idea that husband and wife are equal, separate partners rather than one whole, one-like tenants by the entirety. Comparables. Properties sold in the same area seen on a property report. Condominium, independently sellable and therefore regarded as real estate. Consideration, something of value given by one party to another in exchange for something else. Conspiracy to boycott, an unlawful agreement of two or more persons with the intent to collectively refrain from dealing with or doing business with a particular person, organization, or group. Conventional loan, a type of home loan that is not insured or guaranteed by a government agency such as the Federal Housing Administration or the Department of Veteran Affairs. Cosigner, an individual who agrees to take on shared responsibility for a loan or other financial obligation with another person. Creative financing, non-traditional methods for securing and structuring financial arrangements to acquire real estate, start or expand a business, or finance other ventures. Datum, the set of data that equals heights and depths measured on a horizontal plane. Depreciation, any loss in the value of a property. Discount points, prepaid interest that the borrowers can buy to reduce their interest on the monthly payment. Double net lease, type of commercial real estate lease agreement that requires the tenant to pay for two of the property's operating expenses in addition to the base rent. Easement. An easement is a right held by one person to use the land of another person for a specific purpose. Easement by necessity, type of easement that allows you to utilize a piece of land to get another part of the land. Easement in gross, easement that ties a specific right to a person or entity rather than to the property itself. Easement for ingress and egress, an easement used for entering and exiting a property. Effective age, the age of a property based upon its utility, condition, and physical wear and tear, not its actual age. Emblements, annual crops produced by cultivation legally belonging to the tenant with the implied rights for its harvest. Eminent domain, the right of the government to take over privately owned real estate for public use. Endorsement, signing paperwork, normally a contract. Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, federal agency responsible for dealing with environmental issues. Equitable title, the interest held by one party to purchase property before closing. Equity, the difference between how much your property is worth and how much you owe. Erosion, the wearing away of land or soil. Errors and omissions insurance, a type of liability insurance that provides coverage for professionals and businesses in case they are sued for alleged mistakes. Escheat, a legal process that allows the government to claim ownership of property or assets when the owner is deceased and there are no heirs or beneficiaries entitled to inherit the property. Economic obsolescence, a reduction in the value of a property due to external factors. Amortization, the process of paying off a debt, typically a loan or a mortgage, through a series of periodic payments over time. Rent stabilization, a system to limit the amount by which landlords can increase rents on residential properties. Balloon loan, a loan that begins with fixed regular payments for a specific term and ends with the final payments of the remaining balance. Bargain and sale deed, demonstrates that only the seller of the property holds title of ownership and legally has the right to transfer the property. Bilateral contract, an agreement between at least two people or groups. Blanket mortgage, a single loan that allows borrowers to buy multiple real estate properties under one mortgage. Blind ad, an ad in which the advertiser does not disclose their name or license status in the advertisement. Blind offer, a purchase contract written by a buyer without seeing the property. Blockbusting, the discriminatory practice of encouraging homeowners to sell below market value because the socioeconomics of the neighborhood is declining, specifically by the influx of minorities into that area. Breach of contract. A breach of contract is the failure to complete an agreement per agreed terms. Bridge loan provides short-term financing to homeowners while moving from one house to another. Bundle of rights, the rights to dispose, enjoy, exclude, possess, and control. Deep C is the acronym. Buy down, a process in which the borrower obtains a lower interest for a few years during the loan term by paying more upfront. Buyer's home sale contingency allows the buyer to cancel the contract if they are unable to sell their current home in a specified amount of time. Acceleration clause, a contract provision that allows a lender to require a borrower to repay all of an outstanding loan if payments are not being made or there is a breach of contract. Acceptance, the unconditional and unqualified agreement by the offeree to the terms of the offer. Accession, the acquisition of land by its addition to already owned real estate through human or natural processes. Active property, property available for sale. Ad valorem, Latin for according to value. Adverse possession, the legal principle in which a person who does not have the legal right to a property acquires legal ownership based on the continuous occupation of the land without the permission of its real owner. Affinity housing allows marginalized groups with shared backgrounds to live in their own communities, avoiding certain FHA guidelines. Agreement of sale, a form that states the buyer consents to purchase the property and the seller agrees to sell that property with the terms and conditions illustrated in from both parties. Amendment, a formal change made to a previously agreed upon contract or agreement. Americans with Disability Act, 1990, protects people with disabilities against discrimination in housing. Antitrust laws, a collection of federal and state government laws that regulate the conduct and organization of business corporations. Appraiser, a professional who specializes in estimating the value of real property. Appurtenant easement, a legal right that attaches to a particular piece of real property and benefits the property in some way by allowing the property owner certain rights of use or access over another property. Arbitration, a method of resolving disputes that may arise between parties involved in real estate transactions. Buyer's agent represents the buyer in a transaction in return for the services they receive a fee. Capital gain, the profit from the sale or auction of property. Capitalization, the conversion of assets or income into capital. Capitalization rate, the rate of return that is expected to be generated on a property. Ceteris paribus, Latin for other things equal. Chattels, personal property, also movable. Chattel mortgage, a loan for a mobile or manufactured home or a tangible movable asset such as business equipment, machinery, or any type of vehicle. Addendum, document or attachment used to clarify and add things that were not initially part of the original contract or agreement. Exclusive right to sell listing, agreement between a property owner and a real estate agent or broker, where the property owner gives the agent or broker the exclusive right to market and sell the property. Corporal property, the ownership of a material thing. Exclusive agency listing, an agreement where the seller gives a real estate agent the exclusive right to sell their home, but the agent only gets a commission if they find the buyer. Executed contract, an agreement in which all parties involved have fully performed their obligations as outlined in the contract. Execution date, the day the contract is signed. Executory contract, a contract in which the terms are set but will be fully completed later. Express contract, contract in which all the terms and conditions of the agreement are explicitly stated in writing or orally between the parties involved. Freehold estate, an estate in which you have an exclusive right to enjoy the possession of a property indefinitely. Functional obsolescence, the loss of property value due to an obsolete design feature. Real estate license exam, the thing that you will pass now that you have watched this video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.